Hello, this is Patrick coming to you after a Stars 5-2 loss to the Minnesota Wild. And well, let me start the pod by asking, was anyone else concerned that the Stars were made up of androids? I was, because, the way Dallas had been playing was pretty superhuman lately. Dallas gets its first regulation loss and since November 18th against the Islanders, against a good Islanders team. And, its first regular loss in 5 games. It kills their 9-0-2 point streak. I won't list the rest of them that were busted, but I think the one that was a little surprising was like 15-game point streak against the Wild. That's pretty bonkers. But yeah, we'll just launch into it. Probably a little bit shorter pod today. I can't imagine people are wanting to hear a ton about how Dallas got outplayed, but we'll start with how we always do. How should we view this team? Never want to see Dallas lose, but I am sort of looking forward to the opportunity to, call it like I see it. Wouldn't sure hate to be perceived as a homer because of I like to think that I have a long journalism career that's taught me how to be unbiased despite, rooting for the Stars. But yeah, this was a little bit of a gut check for Dallas. Really interesting to hear head coach Glenn Gullison's words after the game, and that I believe he said, and I'm paraphrasing, that he kind of saw this coming. Dallas played a similar game against the Jets on Tuesday, but, they got more power plays for one. Let's see, they only get just get the one power play and they scored on it. So, 1 for 1, but the fact that they didn't draw more penalties is probably indicative of kind of the phrase that is often used is kind of Dallas got what it deserved in this game, or that the score did kind of reflect the discrepancies. Dallas had 16, 18 shots compared to Minnesota's 30. And for large portions of the game, they were outplayed. But as far as how should we view this team, I still feel like there's the caveat of they look tired again. I'm not sure how that's going to get better. Hopefully you'd think that them coming home, maybe they get some home cooking and, re-rack for their game against Florida. So Florida is getting shellacked by Colorado 5-1 at the end of the second as of this taping. So it'd be interesting to see how that game shakes out. Maybe I'll have an update for you by the time this thing's over, but we'll cover Florida in our upcoming schedule preview, but be pretty interesting to see, two teams conceivably coming off pretty lopsided losses and how they treat that. Florida's still on the road trip and Dallas obviously coming home. I'm personally looking forward to seeing that game against Florida. 2-time defending champs, even though they're not having the season that they'd hoped. I believe they're like almost playing 500 hockey right now, without a couple key players, obviously, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Shows you how good of a game it was tonight that, and that's probably the message in the locker room as well. Like, turn the page. It's just a game. It hurts that it's a divisional game. Obviously, there's they call it a 4-point game for a reason. So for some of the less initiated fans, 4-point game is just a divisional game. And so, Minnesota's gaining 2 points and the Stars are not gaining 2 points. Kind of feels like you gain 4 points if you're Minnesota. Obviously, they've been playing well overall and not able to make up any ground on the Stars. And Colorado's been playing out of its mind and not been able to extend their lead over the Stars. So that'll probably happen tonight with Colorado comfortably in head. But yeah, I think to a certain extent, we have to hold this team's feet to the fire. I think Razor said what was on my mind largely much of the game. And in the third, Dallas offensively was cycling the puck really well, but they really never, ever could get the puck inside in the slot with wide open chances in which they were unchecked. So you have to give Minnesota a lot of credit defensively to shut Dallas down and shut down, any highlight level plays from Dallas for the most part. Miko that was arguably his quietest game of the year. He's -2, no points. If you go up and down the lineup here, many of the guys had their worst game of the year. I thought Jamie Benn, he's -3. Roope is -2. We'll talk about him. Robertson -3. Wyatt -3. That's pretty tough. And they're obviously not getting last change because they're not at home. So I think Minnesota did find some defensive and offensive matchups that they liked. Might give this game a rewatch to we'll see. Maybe we'll do another pod on maybe a little bit more of a breakdown on how Minnesota was able to expose Dallas defensively. Initial impressions were, I thought Minnesota's speed was noticeable. They caught Dallas in several odd man rushes, or they might have turned into 2-on-2s, but Dallas was still back checking and not in the best position. So it was leading to cycles or easier chances than maybe Dallas is used to giving up. They had some good back check plays, Miro's Miro, but more than I'm sure that they are hoping for their liking. It was a bit of a just uncharacteristic game. I think I might have mentioned last pod as well that, Dallas is starting to get, every team's best punch. They have drawn some headlines this year, and you got to figure Minnesota's been keyed up for this game for a hot minute. Like I'm on the team. The Stars have, really put it to Minnesota in the playoffs lately. So, they've certainly been a thorn in Minnesota's side. It was mentioned by others that maybe we might get Wallstead, but I mean, given how Gustafson played against their last win, I believe it was against Seattle. It's been a long week, hasn't it? Yeah, they are coming off a 4-1 win over Seattle, in which Gustafson was, pretty good. He was third star and made 23 saves on 24 shots. So I wasn't totally surprised that he was playing this game. I thought that they would ride the hot hand. And moreover, Minnesota, if they match up, if the playoffs were to start today, how gnarly would it be that Dallas would be playing Minnesota in the first round? I don't like having this kind of, for lack of a better term, crybaby attitude about how the playoffs are structured, but there's no denying that, the Central has been very deep the past while, and many people recognize that the matchups in the first round, that there's a good team going home. So Dallas beats Colorado last year, and I think if Colorado was on the other side of the bracket, that it's pretty likely that they would have been the team to meet up with Dallas, but in the West Final, or however it shakes out. But it's tough to see it like that, and there's a lot of games left to go. I know that Dallas should be weary of the Wild. I think that the Wild play really well. I was really impressed defensively. They really just didn't give up very much. They do what Dallas does to a lot of teams, which is keep teams to the outside and keep the chances relatively low, the grade A chances low. So it's one game. Let's see when Dallas will get a chance to, looks like not for, man, this ought to be good. They host Minnesota the Thursday, April 9th, fourth to the last game, and then they play Minnesota late March in Minnesota. So that should be pretty exciting, 2 games, and that could be for home ice advantage at that point. Who knows? So yeah, we'll just move on to the game recap, and not sure how exciting a recap of this game will be, but I mean, look, Jason Robertson continues his, stellar play, and it isn't lost on me that Bill Guerin, former Star, is GM of the Wild and GM of Team USA. I'm sure that Robertson had a little bit more, or motivation to, put on a show tonight. It's not his best defensive performance, and I would imagine that's, part of what's being, I roll my eyes because, who knows at this point. I was a little surprised he didn't make the team last year, or for the Four Nations. And I think given what he's put together already this season, I think it would be criminal to leave him off. But that said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Robertson hits some sort of cold spell and, for some reason he doesn't make the team. But I'd hope that he's gotten enough recognition this year. And the Stars did that little infographic comparing Kaprizov's numbers and Robertson's numbers since they both came in the league. And obviously Kaprizov gets Rookie of the Year, Robertson second, and Robertson's got more points and he's played in more games, and his plus minus is like double. I think it was like 120 something, and Kaprizov's was like in the 60s. So, if you're talking defensive performance, obviously Robo has that. So it'd be really interesting to see if he makes Team USA. Obviously, it's a team game, so we're not going to sit here and say after. I mean, the man did still score, and he put his 20th up, and at this rate, he might hit 50. That'd be crazy if he hit 50, and then you look back and he doesn't make the Olympic team. So hopefully they'll do the right thing. But that said, would any Stars fans be surprised if they didn't receive the notoriety? Trocheck, I believe, is American, and I kind of think about him and how him playing in New York, and I think last I saw maybe he was on the projected roster, but yeah, he might be great, but I'm like, how is it even a choice between a Robertson and a Trocheck? So, outside of Brady Tkachuk and Matthews, and I mean, I really can't. I don't feel like you should go very far before, finding Robertson on that team. I believe, confirm this. Yeah, Matt Boley will probably make the team, I would imagine. I mean, he's got 32 points on the year, 16 goals, 16 assists. He's having a really good year, and he's American, so I would expect him to kind of be a shoe-in, especially given that it's Guerin. But yeah, I'm sure we'll do some reactions to the rosters. That'll be fun. Get a little nerdy on that, but yeah, we'll just do the game recap here. So Robertson gets the power play goal, and Miro picks up another assist, and that's a great start. And then, Eriksson Ek gets, it's a tough one. I thought that Dallas really lost defensive coverage at times, and you could see how on that goal that Harley, and I believe he was playing with Petrovic on that they were a little confused on who to take. And then I think it's Petrovic in front with Eriksson Ek, and he doesn't have a stick, and then it's a slam dunk. So I think if they had gotten to their assignments quicker, that Petrovic would have been able to tie up a stick, but because it was all happening so fast, it's just poor defensive breakdown. And then largely, I think, that's just Harley getting back into the swing of things. So I'm not overly critical of that. I mean, Stars won a face, it's 1-1 after the first. Stars won a face-off in the second period, first shorty of the year, and Miro just rips a bomb. And give credit to the Stars penalty killers for forcing a offensive zone face-off and really driving the play and forcing Minnesota to kind of be in a situation they weren't prepared for. I mean, man, I'm just so excited to see Miro be playing this way offensively, to get seventh goal, and it'd be a shorty, and that they said that was his first shorthanded goal of his career. I thought that was pretty cool. So, and then Bogosian, man, that goal was that hurt. With 2.5 minutes left, you get a similar play while winning a faceoff, and he just rips one. Don't really put either of those goals on Ottinger, who I thought largely was really great tonight. It's a real shame to see 5-2 up there. It's really 3-2. The empty netters. Okay, give him one. It's really 4-2. But as far as how we're evaluating Jake, I thought he played really well. And I think he really could make a strong case that this was one of his best games of the season. It just sucks that it comes in a loss. He made some incredible pad saves, reflexive saves on the night. Yeah, it's a shame. It kind of felt like it was a wasted prime Ottinger performance, because I really thought he was playing really, really well. Dallas just was not playing well defensively, and they just didn't have the puck very much. So they really got out Stars this game largely. So And I really felt like it was Minnesota that, took control and, full credit to Minnesota. So, and then, it's 2-2 and then you get the big Johansson goal and Dallas is swimming much of it or at least, way out of position. And, Andres maybe could have been in a little bit better position, but it is what it is. I don't want to be too critical with Andre, especially in a game of which I thought he was the Stars' best player. So yeah, 3 stars. We'll just run through those pretty quickly. Number 1, I'll give it to Joel Eriksson Ek. I just thought that he was largely the best player. Boldy did have 3 points. One of them was the empty netter. So Carrillo was a little quiet in this game. Wouldn't have had any points if he didn't get that empty netter assist. So that was pretty interesting. Also, I didn't note on the last pod, but it was sad to see Zuccarello not be able to play. I think Stars fans will always root for 99% of the guys that I've ever played for them. Probably sans like Sean Avery. Can't really think of a ton of other players that played for Dallas in which, you don't root for their career as they move forward. And, I'll continue to root for Zuccarello, even though he's playing for Minnesota, but largely he seemed to be, when the Stars traded for him, he seemed to be a great fit. And, he got the bag in the off season and didn't blame him for, not sticking with the Stars. And obviously he gets, hurt while he was with Dallas. So it's just bad tenure there, but, largely always root for him. So it's tough to see him take that hit in the game previous to, I think it was in their loss to Vancouver that he got laid out. Oh, you know what? No, I think it was against Seattle. Vince Dunn laid him out pretty early in the game. So pretty impressive that they won that. So yeah, 2nd star. Give it to Johansson, game-winning goal. He's a player for them. So I thought he earned that. And, maybe you give it to all 3 Minnesota, but, Andre was just too good to ignore. I'm going to do things however I want. I thought that, largely he was better than Gustafsson. So even though Gustafsson got the win, and then that is the stat that really matters, I'm going to feel confident giving it to Andre. And I think most Stars fans will recognize that they probably wouldn't even been in this game if it wasn't for him, which you can't say very many times about the Stars team. Like, they're in every game. I think that's kind of why this game was a little disappointing, in that they found themselves in a tie game 3rd period, and it took until Minnesota had the lead for them to kind of wake up. That's not Stars like. I feel like they're typically the aggressors, and don't let the play come to them. But largely they didn't have the puck very much, and, they look like a tired team again. So, if they look tired in game 60 and it looks like it could affect their run to the playoffs, then we'll be more critical. But as it currently stands, we're 32 games into the season, into a very, very, very compressed schedule. So we'll see. We'll see how this team, because we're evaluating their 5-on-5 play for sure. They didn't look very good 5-on-5 play, and they can't rely on the power play every game because, tonight is a great example. They got one opportunity, and, while this isn't, 8 Mile and there's no mom spaghetti, if you only get one power play opportunity and you score, but you've given up, 3, you're going to have to do something on 5-on-5. So Dallas has got a lot to work out. Be really curious to see. Well, it's 6-1 now for Colorado and Florida. I wonder if they, let's find out. A little preview of upcoming game. Ooh, wow. Colorado's doing this with Blackwood and net, so that's pretty. But on the flip side, they're playing their backup, Tarasov. He's made 32 saves. If it's possible to look okay, giving up 6 goals. Yeah, we'll just touch on what was a really sour note to end the game. Man, you love to see Miro ripping it, but not off the inside of an ankle of a man that has had traditionally major foot issues on both feet. It wasn't good that he couldn't even get up off the ice. Roope is a prideful man and has taken many a shot off the foot. But yeah, that was very, 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 very concerning to see him laboring so much, and to have to see, I think it was Robertson that had to come up and get his left arm there and help him get off the ice. That's just tough. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, when Roope was out of the lineup was while Dallas was struggling earlier in the season, and their 1-4 multi-game losing streak, that they're going to miss him if he's out for any amount of time. So I really hope that he gets back soon, and that I would expect him not to play against Florida, especially just given that that's an Eastern Conference team. So let that heal a bit. But man, let me tell you, if he's out for any significant amount of time, there's got to be some sort of hex on the Stars team right now, because it's incredible the amount of bad luck and injuries they've had this year. Let's just hope this one's not long term and it doesn't largely impact their playoff seeding, for lack of a better term, because we are getting to the midway point. The Stars do have to start thinking about, how are they going to improve their team for their run? I think, the chatter is starting to pick up with, some trades and rumors about who Dallas might get. Obviously, we'll evaluate that as we get closer to the trade deadline, but seems clear that they need help both at forward and defenseman. But if you had to put money on something right now, I think it would be forward. I think not just because Dallas has struggled 5-on-5 recently, but, them losing Sagan, I mean, potentially Roope's out. You still have Duchesne, warming up, and God knows there would be more injuries. They're going to need another, player. They're going to need another, top 9 player. So I would expect to see them do something at the trade deadline. So I'm not going to be Mr. Hot Stove. So we will, if I see rumors, I'll comment on them. But, I'm not going to call for any trades or any of that, especially given that Dallas has been so dominant lately. But it is kind of clear that they're without an offensive bullet or two. So I think a lot of people would probably expect them to make a move offensively. I mean, I still personally think that, Dallas should be in the market for a top 4 defenseman. I'm not sure how many more years Dallas can keep gambling on whether or not this guy or that guy is going to step up into that top 4 role. But that said, you can't pay everybody, because you just, Harley's just gotten his contract. Essa's being paid well. Miro's being paid well. You only have so much room on the back end. You do need a couple guys that are making $1 million to be playing pretty well. Dallas should be thankful that they had Petrovic playing like he's doing at his term. So yeah, I mean, it'll be a huge loss if they're without Roope. Major, major loss. So let's hope that's pretty short term, and that, he gets back soon. Yeah, and we'll just launch into the preview against the Panthers. Obviously, we touched on a few things, but they are without Barkov for a long period of time, potentially the year, and they're kind of sputtering. Oh, I had misquoted their record previously. So they're 15-12-2, but still, it's kind of close to 500 and much, I mean, they're 6th in the Atlantic, behind Tampa Bay, Boston, Detroit, Montreal, and Toronto, and tied with Ottawa. So, I mean, they've got a lot of work to do, but it's a pretty tight division. Still down 6-1, but yeah, Brad Marchand, what a great trade that was for them. Obviously, defending Cup champs, you can't really poke any holes in their game largely, but they are not the same team this year. They do seem to be worn down a little bit from their Cup runs, and look at Edmonton, look at Dallas, these veteran teams, it's going to wear on you as you keep playing deep into the playoffs. So here's a great stat. Marchand's leading the team in points with 31 and 28 games played, but he's -8. So they're struggling defensively, which is abnormal for them. Goaltending wise, Bobrovsky hasn't been very good this year. You really just need him to be good for the playoffs. So I'm not here to be super critical of Bobrovsky, but his save percentage is .882. That's not like him. And his goals against average is a shade under 3. That's not like him. So I'm sure part of that is just, Miles, the guy's 37, Bob is. So I think that's, God, he's been in the league for 16 years almost. And, last year he put up goals against average 244. The year before that, 237. So, but the year before that, over 3. So it's not like he's this world beater during the year. But that said, you win back-to-back cups and you're the guy. Bobrovsky should be feared for the rest of his career because we know he can turn it on when it matters. So if Dallas plays him on Saturday, which it looks like they're probably going to, he traditionally plays really well against the Stars. So it'd be really interesting to see that matchup. And I'm kind of curious. There's part of me that could see Dallas going to DeSmith. They've got to find a way to get under arrest. And the reason I say that Dallas could go to DeSmith is that, Dallas is playing a Eastern Conference team. So like at the end of the day, these points don't matter as much as these points against Minnesota and Winnipeg were. So, and then they follow up with games against LA, San Jose, Anaheim, like 3 West teams. Like, so I could see maybe Jake playing against LA. So just a theory. They've got a back-to-back next Thursday against San Jose and then Friday against Anaheim. So maybe that's how they look at getting DeSmith his start. Jake plays against Florida and LA. So I'd be curious to see how that works out. If I had to put money on it, I could see, them getting DeSmith one of the next 2 games and then maybe playing him against Anaheim. But that said, Dallas, lost 7-5 against Anaheim last time. So I also could see maybe, the Stars kind of throwing a little bit of a curveball to the Ducks and playing DeSmith. So we'll see. They've got to spell Andre as best as they can. He can't play 65 games in the regular season. He might. So that would be just 17 for DeSmith. No. He's got to play less than 60 because I do think that, you have seen Jake wear down a little bit. He's human. It doesn't matter. Look at the team right now. They're worn down. They're getting a lot of teams' best shot. All these condensed games, and it's not getting any easier. So, next week they play, starting Saturday, they got, another 4 games in 6 days. So that's not going to be easy. Yeah, just to round off the episode, Florida's made it 6-2, but doesn't look like they're going to be able to come back. So if you guys have any questions, please engage, comment on YouTube, Spotify, whatever. I really appreciate the people that have commented so far. And if you want to leave your actual name, love to shout you guys out. And, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, DallasHockeyHangout@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter @Patrick Hayslip. Tough one for the Stars. They lose 5-2 on the road to the Wild, but they get an opportunity to re-rack against a really good opponent on Saturday. And, if you can't get up for the 2-time defending champs and find your energy for that game, then, I would be a little concerned about, Dallas, why they can't seem to find their offense. But, honestly, we probably won't even be talking offense after, Dallas plays Florida. I bet that's probably going to be a 6-5 barn burner. I think Florida's played in a lot of, high event games this year. They are not, like I said, they're not the defensive team that they were. But that said, they are riding a 3-game win streak. They beat Columbus 7-6 in overtime. So I would kind of expect something like that. But previous to that, they had a 4-game losing streak, all at home. That's that's a little surprising. They lose to Philly, Calgary, Toronto, and Nashville all at home. That's pretty tough. So if that's not a sign that this, Florida team is worn down and missing Barkov and missing some of these key players, I'm not sure what is. And then just, they're also, I had mentioned Brady Tkachuk. He's out for a while. So this is just not the same team without Barkov and I said Brady. I'd get confused with those two sometimes, but that's probably a sign that we should sign off Matthew. He's out for a bit. So they're going to have their hands full with Marchand. That's for sure. He always seems to get under the Stars, skin. And I think his speed has always bothered Dallas, and he's a great playmaker. And Sam Bennett has always played really well against the Stars. So has Sam Reinhart. So look out for the Sams. You guys have a great night. Catch you guys next time.